said, my question today, I guess, would be any advice on when our ASD partners get upset because of our thoughts or because our thoughts and opinions trigger them. I get that we don't have to own their emotions, issues, and it's not our job to appease. But when they're triggered and it feels like we're getting yelled at, even though they don't see it, are there tools to deal with the situation? Especially when you're in a position when you can't set boundaries or walk away. Example, a discussion in a car. Are there ways we can de-escalate them or let them know their treatment is simply wrong without triggering them further? So like when you're in a car, one of the things that you can do is really you can either disengage from the conversation, and you have to know what's more likely to trigger them, and what you want to do is start to de-escalate in a way that makes the conversation. You don't want to cater to them, and I know this is something that you've talked about a lot, Angie. Why do we have to cater to them? But anytime, whether it's your ASPE partner or anybody who starts to escalate with you in a situation where you are truly in a situation where you're kind of trapped with them, in that moment you want to choose an option that just you don't want to poke or provoke, and you just want to become dull and boring in that moment. You just want to, just say, okay, you know what? Let's talk about it later. And I tell couples, let's figure out a word that's like a pause button, and agree about it beforehand. Before to have this conversation before, and say, look, there are times that we get in the conversations that are very triggering for you, maybe in the car, and I want to have a code word like pause, and I'm going to tell you ahead of time that if you start to trigger in the car and I say, hey, pause, I need to pause, I'm going to stop talking. And then if he continues to escalate more and more because you've pressed pause, if you're not the one driving, and hopefully it doesn't get to a point where you truly feel unsafe. That's a totally different dynamic. If someone is then starting to provoke you in order to make you feel unsafe in that situation, that's not just an ASPE trigger or an ASPE meltdown. That becomes a manipulative, controlling thing. But if someone's triggered and you're wanting to de-escalate it, you can just disengage and say, you know what? You don't want to say, I see you're upset, and because you're upset, we need to pause. You can just say, let's talk about this later. I need a minute. I need a minute to process this. Or you can also try reflective listening, because when somebody's triggered, sometimes they need to be heard. If it's a sensory trigger, if they're emotionally in fight or flight, sometimes reflective listening is not going to de-escalate it. But you can in that moment say, so what I'm hearing you say is that you're really upset because blah, 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 blah. And sometimes that really works, because if they're not really in state of in fight or flight, when you reflect back to somebody, that doesn't mean that you're agreeing with them. You're just hearing what they're saying. And that, guys, I'm all about reflective listening anyway. And so you can say, so what I'm hearing you saying is that you're really angry because da 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 da. And then you can say, okay, am I hearing that right? And then they clarify, yeah, that's what I hear. Okay, so what I'm hearing you say then is blah, 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 blah. Okay, I really want to give this some thought, so I'll get back to you. I want to think about this. Thank you for letting me know. You're not agreeing with it, but you've heard them. So that's also a really good way to de-escalate.